everybody. Hi. My name is Kristen. I'm going to be your safari guide for this journey out through the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. I noticed that some of you back there have some cameras. You can feel free to have cameras out and ready to try to take pictures. I recommend high-speed settings, though. There are some areas on the reserve where we are not allowed to stop. Even when we are allowed to stop, it's only going to be for just a few seconds. So an action or sports setting, something with a high shutter speed, usually works the best. I also recommend you hold on to those cameras and all of your other personal belongings very tightly. We are not allowed to stop inside the reserve for anything that falls outside of the truck. That includes hats, sunglasses, cameras, cell phones, and pretty much anything else you might still want to the end of the safari. Make sure you're holding on to it. It could be a while before we see any dropped item again. It looks like we've got our clearance, so we're going to go get started. We're going to begin by heading deep into the Little Ituri Forest. Forests like this one are home to many different types of antelope. Their natural colorings and markings can blend them in really well, so we got to keep a sharp eye out. More than once, I've been just a few yards away from an animal before we noticed it hiding in the bushes. Already some pretty good views out on the hill to the right. Up on top of the hill there's an okapi out there. Often mistaken for relatives of the zebra because of the stripy legs they have. They're actually the only living relative of the giraffe. It's because of the shape of their heads. They have ossicles, which are the false horns. They also have long black prehensile tongues, just like the giraffe do. They are pretty reclusive animals, kind of shy. Okapi were not first discovered by the Western world until about 1901. Pretty recent, relatively speaking. Looks like there's a few more antelope in between the bushes towards the front left corner of the truck. We're going to loop around the hill. We're going to be on the right-hand side of the road. You see the light tan antelope hiding in the bushes. These are greater kudu. Kudu are the second tallest antelope in Africa. Boys stand about 5 feet tall at the shoulder. Girls, the ones out on the hill to the right, they're a little bit smaller. Easiest way to tell the difference? The girls don't grow horns. Male kudu grow horns up to 71 inches in length. That's almost 6 feet long. It makes them pretty noticeable. You're also going to see some cinnamon orange colored antelope in the bushes to the right. These are bongos, also known as the ghosts of the forest. They love to stay hidden away in the densely vegetated areas. Both male and female bongos will grow the back-swept horns. Helps them get through the dense vegetation that they call home. I am starting to think it might be time for us to head out of all this dense forest. Now, we'll go head out to the Safi River next. It's my favorite spot to go look for hippos. While hippos are so very large, they can be kind of hard to see. They're going to spend most of their day in the water so that they don't get too hot in the African sun. Our first view of the water is going to be on the right. We typically get much better hippo spottings just around the river bend up ahead to the left. So if you're on the left, please don't worry yet. Because better is a relative term when it comes to hippo spottings. They can stay completely under the water for about 8 minutes at a time before they need to come up for air. We'll take a look, see if we can find a few up ahead. Sure enough, there's a whole group of them to the left between the island and the riverbank. A group of hippos known as a bloat. That is a bloat of hippos. They are considered nocturnal animals. They spend most of their day just kind of sleeping in the water like this. They usually climb out of the river at nighttime when it's a little cooler to eat food. Each hippo eats between 80 and 90 pounds of grass a night. There's also some big gray-white birds on top of the island to the left. They're probably not as exciting as the hippos, but these are pink-backed pelicans. They get the name because during mating season, their back starts to turn a more light pink color. They blush. A common misconception about the pelican is that they carry fish around in their gular pouches. They don't really do that. They use the pouch kind of like a net for filtration. So when they catch a fish, they're going to squeeze the water out of the pouch they eat the fish right away. I'm a little bit more worried about what the next animal's eating. We're about to be driving over a really rickety bridge. And we're going to wait until there's some room for us on the other side of the bridge, because if you look towards the front left corner of the truck, those are Nile crocodile, and they will snap the bones of their prey with their powerful jaws. They have a crushing force of 2,000 pounds per square inch. Sir, sit down, please. Thank you. These crocodile will go after prey larger than themselves, like zebra and wildebeest. And by larger, I do mean bigger or taller, not necessarily longer. From the tip of the nose to the tip of the tail, these crocodile average about 16 feet long. To put that in some perspective for you, it makes them about as long as giraffe get tall. So we are headed away from those rivers and out towards a completely different ecosystem with completely different animals. We're going to go head on out towards the savannah next. It does look like we've run into a little bit of traffic out here. Notice we kind of paused near the crocodile, which normally I would not do. It's amazing. You go all the way out in the middle of nowhere in Africa and there's still traffic. The bad news is we can get stopped and slowed down out here a little bit. The good news, our traffic is usually caused by animals crossing the road, so hopefully when we get up to whatever's causing this, we'll get some really good views. You're also going to notice that the environment that we're driving through is starting to change as we head away from the forests and the rivers towards the savannah. We're going to start seeing some different kinds of plant life as well. Towards the front left corner of the truck, coming up on the right-hand side of the road, there's a different kind of tree out here known as the baobab. Also known as the upside-down trees. You're going to know which one it is as we get closer. It's the one coming up on the right-hand side of the road that kind of looks like it's got its roots sticking up in the air. Of course, they're not really roots. These are branches. Baobabs just go leafless about 9 months out of the year to conserve water in the hot African sun. They store the water in the really large trunk they get. A combination of large trunk, skinny branches, no leaves. Kind of makes them look like they're upside down. We are not the only ones to know that these trees store water. Elephants figured it out too. If an elephant's out in the savannah looking for water and they can't find a river or a stream or a lake, but they see a baobab, they'll go up to the tree and use their tusks to gouge into the trunk of the tree. Then they're going to chew on the bark and suction the water that's stored inside out of the tree, using it kind of like their own personal drinking fountain. Kind of neat. But I would much rather talk about animals, so now that our traffic's starting to clear up, we're going to head around this corner, and it's going to be our first view of the savannah and the Serengeti grasslands. These grasslands stretch for miles across East Africa and are home to millions of migrating animals every year, making it kind of like their version of a superhighway. This is the Africa we're working so hard to conserve. And you can see there's some giraffe that were causing our traffic out in the distance there towards the front left of the truck near the road. So we are going to loop around, hopefully get into the middle of the grouping. So we'll talk about the giraffe in a little bit. There's another animal out here that might be a little harder to see. Towards the front left corner of the truck, coming up on the right-hand side of the road. See the broken tree branches all kind of piled up? If you look just to the left of the tree branches, it's part of a group of white-bearded wildebeest. I say part of a group because wildebeest are one of the largest migrations in Africa. Usually there are thousands of those gray animals in a single grouping. There's probably a lot more of them out here in the tall grasses and bushes nearby, so we'll keep an eye out as we drive around. You get some more beautiful views of the giraffe out in the distance to the right. And as you drive around to get into the middle of the grouping of giraffe, you might start to notice some animals with some really big horns coming up on the right-hand side of the road. These are Ankole cattle. Their impressive horns, as you can see, average about 3 to 4 feet in length. The really cool part? They are not solid bone. Inside of those horns, it's honeycomb-shaped, which allows blood to circulate through the horn. When it gets up there, it's going to release heat, which helps keep these animals cooler. Kind of like carrying around your own personal air conditioning unit up on top of your head. That's not something I recommend. Those horns weigh about 20 pounds, but it works for them. The Ankoli cattle to the right, to the left, we're at the edge of the reserve. You might see some fence lines in between the bushes. Oh, but if you look past the fence line, at the base of the rock wall in the distance to the left, there are African wild dogs sleeping stretched out in the shade. They're also known as the painted dogs because of their coloring. They're black, white, and kind of that orangish-brown color all mixed together. There's a couple of them out there in the shade of the rock wall all the way out to the left. You might see an ear twitch. The painted dogs might look a lot like domestic dogs you'd be used to, but they are only very loosely related. Completely different offshoot of the canid family. Those dogs are the most successful hunters of mammals in Africa because they'll chase their prey until their prey drops from exhaustion. It's kind of terrifying when you think about it, so we head away from the dogs, hang out with the nice grass-eating cattle and antelope instead.
If you want me to.
To the right, more views of the Ankoli cattle. To the left, these are sable antelope. These are girls. Boys' horns get a little bit longer. They can reach up to about 5 feet in length. The boys also darken as they age. So they start out this light brown color, and as they get older, they get darker and darker. The dominant male in a group of sable antelope will be so dark brown he almost looks black in color. On both sides of the road, you're going to start seeing some real tall reddish-brown mounds sticking out of the ground. These are all termite mounds. Might look like dirt, and it's because they're partly made of dirt. Also made using saliva and dung. This substance bakes in the hot African sun to form these structures that are about as hard as concrete. Other animals will also use the termite mounds for scratching posts and lookout posts, things like that. I know, it's the giraffe coming up on both sides of the road that are probably just a little bit more exciting. This is going to start to bring us into the middle of the group, which is quite appropriately known as a tower. This is a tower of giraffe. That is so appropriate because they even start out pretty big. Baby giraffes stand about 6 feet tall when they're born, meaning they can look into the eyes of any full-grown adult human, or if you're short, like me, newborn baby giraffe looking right over our heads. Now, the one that was out to the right was sitting down. That's not a behavior you see very often for giraffe, because it takes them a little while to get up and down with those nice long legs. They sleep standing up. Something we like to see on our reserve because it means they're happy and comfortable in their environment. Of course, it helps that they don't sleep for very long. Giraffe takes short naps throughout the day that all add up to about half an hour. That's it. It's a defensive mechanism that keeps them on the move. They spend about 16 to 20 hours a day eating or chewing. Most of their day is spent chewing on stuff. The giraffe coming up on both sides of the road do have something in common with us you might not think about, especially if you're looking at the nice long tall necks. They happen to have the exact same number of bones in their necks that we have in ours. Both humans and giraffe have only 7 vertebrae. Theirs are just a lot bigger. It helps them reach the tree leaves they find so tasty. There's some more wildebeest out in the grasses to the right. There's also some tiny animals out here to go from really tall to really small. Out to the right, the teeny tiny light tan animal with the white underside, that's not a baby. That's a springbok. That's as big as they get. They only reach about 3 feet tall, weigh no more than 100 pounds. They'll jump 6 feet in the air repeatedly when frightened. They literally spring from place to place. Kind of fun. I know, a giraffe is still more exciting. Even if they're just standing around chewing on stuff. Something else that helps the giraffe reach the tree leaves is their very long tongues. Giraffe tongues do reach about 18 inches in length. They are prehensile. That means they can grab the leaves off the trees using just their tongues, like we would use our fingers. A few last views of the giraffe out to the right in between the trees. So we are headed out to Monkey Point next. Monkey Point gets its name for a group of mandrills that have taken up residence at one of the abandoned camps out here on the other side of these large rocks. Mandrills are incredibly social amongst themselves. They're very shy to outsiders. We're going to be looking for motion. If you see one, there's probably a couple more right nearby, so keep a sharp eye out to the left. they can be kind of hard to find. Mostly black in color, not very big. Although they are the largest of the monkey species, it's not saying much. Adult males only weigh about 100 pounds. And females max out at about 35 pounds at the most. Oh yeah, out to left, there's the dominant male, the largest with the bright red and blue markings. The markings let the females know he's male, lets the males know he's the boss. Always good to know who's in charge of a group of monkeys.
He's the super.
Looks like we're getting close to elephant country. There's an elephant out in the distance to the right. I'd like to get a little closer, so we'll keep heading around. Usually I take the road to the right to get out into elephant country from here, but there's a big road closed sign. It looks like the road's gone. Guess we're not going that way. It's another view of the elephant out to the right, and it looks like there's another road, kind of looping back around that same direction. I think we're going to try this one. I suppose it's alright. You guys all just wanted to go on safari anyway, so I'm just gonna go have an adventure. We'll find something fun to look at out here. I am absolutely sure it just might add another day or two to our safari. Huh. Well, we found a bridge, which is useful. This bridge is looking kind of beat up, so we're gonna go very carefully. Poly-poly, which means very slowly, just to make sure it holds us the whole way across. Is groaning. There's a few more views of the elephant out there to the right. I think we're headed the right direction. So far, so good. So let's go see if we can find a few more elephants out here. I'm seeing some pretty good signs. We're headed into some red clay pits. I am starting to see tusk marks in the clay on both sides of the truck. I also see some tracks leading out to the left, and sure enough, more elephants.
Oh my god.
Unfortunately, biggest threats to the elephants? Still people. Still being hunted for their ivory tusks. They also face habitat loss due to mining going on out in the Congo. The miners are looking for an ore called coltan used in electronics, like cell phones and laptops. So if you want to help out the elephants, like the ones coming up on the left, please feel free to recycle electronics when you're finished with them. That's going to reduce the need for the ores. Helps the elephants keep their habitat. It's looking like we found the outskirts of a herd. I'm kind of hoping that it's a family group as opposed to a bachelor group. The young elephants stay by their moms and all the girls until they reach about 13. At around 13, that's when they're considered adults. That's when the boys get pushed out of the family group to go off on their own or join the loose bachelor group. Bachelor groups do not tend to stay together. They'll meet up and then go off on their own again. And it's a family group because there's some younger ones by the watering hole playing in the water coming up on the left. If you've got video capability, get it ready. There's also a couple of different types of birds out to the left. Now, while there's a couple of types out here, there's only one type I'm interested in. The tall pink ones are a flamboyance, and yeah, flamboyance is a whole group of flamingos. Those tall pink birds to the left are greater flamingos, the largest and the lightest pink of all the flamingo species. But if you look across the flamingos, you get a few more elephant views out there as well. We're going to go head deeper into the savannah to see if we can find even more animals to look at. tucked underneath the palm tree, there is a whole group of white rhino out there. Much larger than black rhino. White rhino weigh between 4,000 and 5,000 pounds. They're full growth. We're going to go get a little closer. Now, to the right, there's a zebra way out in the distance. I'd like to get a lot closer to the zebra as well. So we're going to talk about them in a little bit. Once we can loop around and get closer to them, we'll talk about the white rhino first. You might notice, compared to the zebra, the animals I call out here the white rhino, not actually the color white. It's a funny story. They got their name from a miscommunication. Native Dutch settlers in Africa called them white rhino. White being the Afrikaans word for wide. They were talking about the wide square mouths that these animals have, as opposed to the triangular shaped mouth that the black rhino has. English settlers came in, heard them saying white rhino, thought they were saying white rhino, and the name stuck. So they're now officially the white rhino for no particular reason at all. I think we have found some cheetah out here too. It can be a little harder to find, but towards the front left corner of the truck, all the way up on top of the hill, stretched out in the shade by the tree line, there's a pair of them sitting up there. You can see the head sticking up. They've been causing a lot of trouble in Namibia hunting livestock. The farmers out there had been hunting the cheetah to protect their livestock. That is not a good solution. The cheetah are endangered. So our reserve supports training programs that train really large dogs called Anatolian Shepherds and Kennel dogs. Dogs will scare the cheetah away from the livestock without endangering the cats, saving their lives. I think it's kind of neat. It's the dog saving the cats out there. As you head around here, there's a large pile of rocks out to the left. I know rocks are not real exciting to look at, but a formation like this is known as a kopie. Sometimes you can find lions hanging around the kopies. Rocks heat up in the African sun, gives them a warm place to sleep during the day. At nighttime, it gives them good vantage points when they're hunting. Now, it is pretty rare to see lions out and about during the day, but we'll keep an eye out because you never know. To the right, there's another white rhino out there. There's also more zebra. I think we can get some closer and better views of the zebra if we loop around these rocks, so we're going to keep heading around. As we loop around to get back to the zebra and the rhino on the right, ahead of the truck there's some large burrows in the ground on the left. These are most likely warthog burrows. They're the largest of the burrowing mammals. If they were feeling threatened, they back into a burrow with their tusks facing outward. Never, ever disturb a warthog back into a burrow. Their tusks are very sharp and they're not afraid to use them. Coming up on the right, another view of the white rhino and some pretty good views of the zebra out here. Biggest question I always get with zebra: black with white or white with black?
Yeah.
Well, it's actually the noses that give it away. They've got nice black noses. It means they're black animals with white stripes. They are more black than white. Of course, the really cool part, the stripes go all the way down to the skin. Underneath their coat, under their hair, they're still striped animals. It's kind of neat. You may also have noticed that the zebra legs are kind of skinny compared to the rest of their bodies. While they're very skinny, they are very powerful. They are capable of delivering a kick with their hind legs strong enough to break the jawbone of an attacking lion. They even learn to use those legs pretty early on. A few minutes after they're born, they're up and walking. Shortly after, they're running fast enough to keep up with the rest of the herd. Impressive. Speaking about herds, there's some more antelope ahead of the truck coming up on top of the hill on the left-hand side of the road. Those are scimitar horns, the oryx, in between the trees. They get the name for those beautiful back-swept horns that, as you can see, kind of resemble the Middle Eastern sword called the scimitar. Thus, scimitar horned oryx. Not to be outdone for appropriate names, to the right, those yellow-billed stork. Yeah, it's not just a description, it is their name. They're the yellow-billed stork, and they're carnivores. They eat snakes, frogs, fish, small rodents, small birds, pretty much any meat that'll fit in their bill. They're gonna go for it, which probably makes the oryx out to the left pretty happy. They are not small enough to fit in those birds' bills. Unfortunately, this is gonna bring us to the end of our safari. Time sure flies when you're having fun. I know I had a blast driving you all around through Africa. I hope you all enjoyed yourselves as well, because this does mean I do have to bring you back to the closest warden station to drop you off at. Don't worry, from there it is a really short walk back to the Harambe village that you came through to get here. Or, if you're interested in some more up-close animal encounters, I highly recommend the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail. Nice, easy walking trail that you can even take strollers on if you have any strollers to pick up. Out there you're going to find some more African animals. Sometimes you can even find gorillas, like the name suggests. Sounds like we're getting pretty close to the village. So before I let you go, for any wilderness explorers on board my truck today you've all been riding aboard the Simba 1. That's SIMBA and the number 1. Once again, my name's Kristen. You don't need to know that for the wilderness explorers, but it has been my absolute pleasure driving you all around. I just ask that you do remain completely seated until the lovely lady up here opens up the doors for you. Then check around, make sure you have all your personal belongings before you step down.